Salmond, in South Tyrol, independence is not supported by the Süd-Tiroler Volkspartei, which is the ruling party there. They come up with arguments such as independence is not appropriate for a population that, according to international law, cannot be considered a nation, but rather an ethnic minority. Would you agree?
So nations come in all shapes and sizes. The most important definition is whether people consider themselves to be a nation. Now, of course, in any process, people have to show flexibility in terms of how they fulfil their aspirations. When I came into politics in Scotland, there was no assembly, no parliament in Scotland. There was no hope of having one. The Conservative government of Margaret Thatcher rode roughshod over Scotland. People thought it was a fantasy to believe that the ancient nation of Scotland would recover its own parliament. Now, 30 years later, we have our own parliament. It has wide-ranging powers. The Independence Party has a majority in it, or a near majority in a proportional system. And the SNP hold 56 out of the 59 seats of Scotland in the Westminster Parliament. So clearly we have a transformed situation, and it's like that for other countries and territories as well. It's up for the population of these places to decide how they want to pursue their ambitions.
Thank you. Another counter-argument is that there has to be found evidence that the population is oppressed. Obviously, this is not the case in Scotland. Is that an argument for you, sir?
Not really, because I mean, there's never been a doubt that Scotland is a nation. I mean, even our foremost opponents concede that Scotland is a nation. The Unionists in Scotland, the Unionists at Westminster, say the nation of Scotland view is accommodated within the United Kingdom. But there's never really been an argument against Scottish nationality. We don't have that. It doesn't exist as a serious argument in politics. Maybe it did 100 years ago, but it doesn't exist now.
Does a population have to be oppressed in order to have the right to self-determination?
Well, clearly not. I mean, many countries have expressed and exercised the right of self-determination by consent. For example, recently in Europe, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, by consent, expressed the right of self-determination. In the United Kingdom, 50 countries, 50, have become independent from Westminster since the end of the Second World War. Some of these countries, some, have been former colonies, so perhaps could have been considered to be oppressed, but many were dominions, were democratic dominions, Canada, Australia, I mean, not since the Second World War, but before that. So many of these countries were dominions and self-governing democracies, so they could hardly have been considered to be oppressed. But one thing consistently, well, two things consistent. One is that all of them became independent. And the second thing that's consistent is I must have met the High Commissioner or representative for each and every one of these countries in my time in politics. And these are countries large and small, rich and poor, in Africa, in Asia, around the world, have become independent from the United Kingdom since the Second World War. And you know what? Not one single one of them, not one, ever said to me they wanted to go back under London control.
Moving borders does not fit into the contemporary political context or in the contemporary political spirit, since we live in a Europe without borders. Do you agree with that?
Well, the two things are separate. There isn't a hard border between France and Germany, but you still know if you're in France or you're in Germany. So these are two separate arguments. The Europe without borders means that you don't have customs posts or restrictions on movement of people. That's one of the essential freedoms of the European Union. But it doesn't remove Germany or Denmark or Belgium or Austria or France. They don't cease to become countries. The border doesn't cease because it's not a hard border. Free movement of people doesn't eliminate borders, it just allows people to move between them.